I am powerful.
I am powerful.
Louder. I am powerful.
I am powerful.
I am powerful.
I am powerful.
Hello, and welcome to the podcast. Today I have a very special treat. If you're thinking security and safety, we think Brian. I am here with him, and I'm very excited. Brian, please introduce yourself.
Hey, good morning. My name is Brian Townsend, and I am the founder and principal of Eagle 6 Training, and I'm also the executive director for Only 2MG.
Only 2MG. So what's Eagle 6 Training? Tell me about that, because I was reading up on it, and impressive.
So Eagle 6 Training is a training and speaking and consulting company. I spent 28 years in law enforcement, most of that at the federal level. I was the DEA special agent, and I still work with law enforcement, but now in a training capacity. And Eagle 6 Training takes a lot of what we learned during our law enforcement careers. It was myself and some other retired DEA agents. And we do a lot of leadership training and consulting and speaking and really whatever the client needs, we'll try to meet their demands.
That's a long time of law enforcement. Is that normal? That's the normal tenure, or people normally go that long?
Yeah, I mean, at least 20. Like most careers, you try to get that retirement in. And it was 5 years as a police officer, and I was with the DEA for 23 years. So 23 years was fully vested. Like the good retirement and
law enforcement. Why? I like to find out. I think everyone has a lot of potential. Everyone has a lot of talent. Why law enforcement? What made you one day wake up and say, this is it? Because that was your whole career, right? I mean, that's a long time. So why?
Well, I had an interest in law enforcement when I was younger, specifically drug enforcement. I didn't know anything about the DEA or what that was, or quite frankly, how I would achieve that goal. But I did have that interest. It really got developed more in my high school years. I was seeing what drugs were doing to people and how they just hurt people and families and communities, and wanted to be part of the solution. But I was young, and of course that was an idea, but I didn't know how to achieve it. I didn't know if I knew that was the path I wanted to go on, but I didn't know how to, like I said, how to achieve it or if something would derail it. And thankfully it didn't. I went to college and studied criminal justice and ended up becoming a police officer, which originally I had no intention of doing, but it was a natural stepping stone, if you will, to the DEA. But being a police officer was a wonderful experience, and I don't regret that. It was great. It really taught me a lot. And had I stayed with the police department for 20 years, I think I would have been happy as well. But no regrets going to DEA. It was a great career. I loved every minute of it. I got paid to do what I loved doing, believe in the mission, the people, the work we did. Absolutely blessed.
Yeah, it's impressive. What do you mind saying? What city were you policing? Or?
Yeah, so I was a police officer in Joplin, Missouri. Joplin is in the southwest corner of Missouri. Most people know Joplin because of the tornado that killed 164 people. I was there before that. I was there in the 1990s. A great department, it really was. Great officers, great community. Really supported the law enforcement community, and that was a wonderful thing to see. After that, I went to the DEA, started my DEA career in Little Rock, Arkansas. Little Rock, it's funny, when I went to Little Rock, everyone's like, oh, Little Rock, kind of making a lot of jokes. And quite frankly, I made a lot of jokes too early on. But Arkansas, let me tell you, it's a great place. It really is. Again, beautiful people and wonderful opportunities there, and learned a lot. We had the highway system in Arkansas was interesting. So we had a lot of drug traffickers that were transporting and moving dope across the United States from places like South Texas or Arizona or California. And so we got a little taste of a lot of different things within the drug enforcement realm, if you will. So I did that for about 10 years. And then I went to Corpus Christi, Texas. And that was my first position as a manager in DEA. Now we worked. Our office was in Corpus Christi, but most of our work was down in the McAllen area because of the checkpoints and really just because of the border and because of how much drugs come across the border into the U.S. and right up Highway 77 and 281 to Houston and other places. And so that was a great time to really, a lot of in-depth learning. How's that?
Hands
Learned a
on
lot,
it.
learned a lot more about the cartels, about drug trafficking.
Got it.
I had a pretty good foundation going in, but that was eye-opening. And then the bulk drugs that we would see. I mean,
It would be a
you see
lot.
10, 20,000 pounds of dope. You just become numb to it anymore. It's so much.
See, we watch it on movies, but we don't put together that this is
Yeah.
like really going on. That there's like a big room full of drugs, and so I always ask the question in my head with guys like you because it's a job where you're risking, right? You're risking it all, your life by doing this. Have you ever had any fears going into any mission or any fears going into these jobs?
Yeah, I did. I worked some undercover early on in my career. In fact, one of my undercover missions was featured on A&E. There's a show on A&E called Undercover Caught on Tape.
What? Yes, I'm gonna look for you. Look for this episode.
Episode 6 of season 1. The last 20 minutes is a operation that I did back in 2004. I had an organization that was selling both methamphetamine and marijuana, and I was able to infiltrate the marijuana arm of it and then meet 2 members of the Gulf Cartel who we lured to just outside of Dallas, Texas. And I did an introductory purchase of a few hundred pounds of marijuana and we arrested them. But operations like that and just in general, yeah, I mean, there were times when, you're nervous, but we train a lot. And we're taught to run towards those things and not away from them.
And what do you think happens in your mindset? Because I can't imagine walking into a room. You're introducing these guys that are they're literally known for being dangerous, right? And you're not acting. You're undercover, so you have to keep a good face on, and you have to keep your nerves about you, right? Because they're looking for tell signs, right? If you're
Yeah.
undercover or not. What's the mind? Like you said, you run towards it. How does your mindset switch from, oh, I don't know what's going to happen now to we got this. Let's go. Let's get them. That's what happens.
Right. It's a lot of training. It's a lot of discipline. It's trusting in the system and trusting in the ability of your people and having that confidence. I was so fortunate to work with amazing people and you just build these brotherhoods and sisterhoods, these bonds, right? And you believe in each other and you believe in their abilities and you have their back. In fact, that's why I call Eagle 6 training Eagle 6 training. Eagle is representative of the DEA, and then 6 is, a law enforcement or military term for having one's back. So Eagle 6 training, and that's really how you approach a situation, right? You trust in the people around you, trust in the system. DEA is very good at operational management, risk management. Risk management in DEA is a Tuesday morning. That's an easy thing. Not to say that things don't go wrong, not to say that we get cavalier or cocky about it, but we're used to those things. So we try to mitigate those risks and think about those things before going into risky situations.
I'm telling you, it's really courageous to go into situation. I thought I was, but I would never put myself in that situation. That's why I pay my tax dollars for guys like you because I don't have it. I don't know. That's a normal person to think about what that is to walk into these situations. And you're the enforcer. You have to take care of it. There's no 911. Let me call somebody to come help me. You are it. You got to take care of it. Is there a situation you can talk about that was extreme and like put you in a situation of danger? I know you got to be careful, but
Yeah, Thankfully, I never had to shoot or kill anyone. Very, very thankful of that. Been in some situations where shots were fired, and let me tell you that doesn't happen very often. But when it does happen, it gets a lot more real, right? Because now now you're laser focused. I mean, you're always focused, on what you're doing, but when you hear the shot, things change. Psychologically, things just change. And now you have to focus on, you don't want to get tunnel vision. You want to make sure that you're there and that you're confident and that trust in your ability, trust in your training, trust in your teammates. It all comes together and going out of a situation like that and debriefing it and thinking about, what I do right, what I do wrong. And then learning from those things so you're more prepared for the next time, potentially happens. It's a constant, I don't want to say battle, but it's constant training, constant thinking about doing it right and doing it, and making sure that you go home and that everyone else goes home. And so, yeah, I think to answer your question, just hearing those
It's
shots,
on. Jesus,
it's different. Let me tell you,
it's on. And I grew up in a drug infested area when I was a kid, so we would hear the shots, but we ran away and hid. You know what I mean? Because we weren't part of that. So it's a different. You guys run into it. You were depending on you two. So what do you think is like the most important thing? I hear training, and that's what you do, right? You train now. How important is that? And what would you say is the most important part of that?
It's really important. And there's a lot of research behind this. Your brain is going to do things in times of stress, right? And you want to, whether it's muscle memory or whatever it is, you want to be able to not freeze. You want to be able to adapt to the stress and be efficient, handle it properly, right? And so it's training. It's and most of the things you train for, at least in the law enforcement realm, probably never happen, right? I mean, we shoot a gun every 3 months for qualification. Hopefully, you shoot more than that, but you're constantly doing that, and you're doing different, not just shooting at a target, but you're moving. You're, maybe you have barriers in front of you. Maybe they could induce some stress somehow during the whole range situation. But you're constantly training under different environments and trying to mirror what a real critical incident would look like, but yet obviously in a safe environment, in a controlled environment. And you just do it repetition over and over. It's the same as, let's say a professional athlete who's at the highest level of his or her game. They're constantly doing these things, right? And they're making those tweaks and they're doing it and doing it and doing it. And they make it look easy. And we're not professional athletes, but it's the principles are the same, where you're doing something enough where in that moment of flight or what's the
Fight or
flight, that you react the way that you were trained to react.
God.
And I was talking to a person the other day, non-law enforcement, and they were in an active shooter situation, and they were teachers, and they had gone through some active shooter training, but a few of the people froze, just absolutely froze. They had cement in their shoes, and I don't fault them. I mean, people react differently to these situations, right? But that's what the training should do. If it's repetitive and you're learning from your mistakes and you're doing it over and over and over, it should allow you to operate efficiently and effectively in those situations. And in law enforcement, and especially federal law enforcement, which is most of my experience, I mean, that's what we train for constantly.
Yeah, better be ready. And then that muscle memory kicks in when it's time. I don't know. I can't see it. So what do you think our country, because drugs is destroys everything, right? And it's not going away for some reason, well, because of the money. But what do you think is something communities individually can do to start taking these things out of there? Because you guys need help. You're limited in resource. You can't go into every neighborhood and stop every drug, right? It wouldn't work. So what can they do to help law enforcement to do what they do?
We got to decrease the demand. So at the end of the day, we can arrest folks, we can demonize cartels and traffickers, and the pharmaceutical industry or China and all these folks that we should be having these conversations. But at the end of the day, it is our demand that allows these people to profit from us. You think about the United States, we're probably 4% of the world's population. There's 8 billion people in the world. We have a tiny piece of the world population, yet most drug consumption is here in the United States.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's we have an appetite for drugs unlike any other nation. We really do. And until we focus on that demand that demand and reduce that, we're always going to have a problem. So what communities can do, what people can do, what parents can do is they can start having these conversations, especially parents. Don't be afraid to talk to your children about drugs. I can't tell you. And it's heartbreaking. And it also makes me angry when parents tell me that out of sight, out of mind. I don't want to have these conversations. They're too tough. Someone's going to have these conversations with your children, social media, the media, like our movies, our TV programs, their goofy friends, a drug trafficker. Talk to your parent and go beyond drugs. Talk about sex and violence and have conversations. Be a parent, right? Just be involved in your children's life and work on reducing that demand. Work on giving them the knowledge. When I talk to kids, I say that all the time. Knowledge is power, and I truly believe that.
I like that.
If for any situation, drugs or not, the more information we have, the more likely we're going to make a good decision, right?
Yep.
So when I talk to people, especially youth, I want to give them the accurate information on drugs. When I go in, it's funny. When I go in, I always say, I'm not here to tell you to say no to drugs. And of course, the principals, everyone's like, oh no, who did we bring in, right? And it always scares them. It scares them for a minute, but then I say, look, obviously I want you to say no, but here's my goal today. I'm going to give you some information. And with this information, you're going to be more informed. You're going to have a lot more knowledge. And I think you're going to say no if you apply that knowledge to the situation. So ultimately, I do want them to say no to drugs. But remember back in the 80s, it was just say no. And I'm not faulting it. We were doing what we could do, but people need the why, right? People need to know the reason, and especially young people. They're very inquisitive. Why? Are we there yet? They're always asking questions.
Always.
And, for the longest time, we just said, shut up because I said so. Well, we all want to know the reason. Knowledge is power. And it's the same thing for drug trafficking and anything else for that matter. Just give them the information, give them the reasoning. And that's, to me, is impacting and powerful.
Wow. So you're like really, I don't know what you just said. It was, as a parent, you're right on. I've always talked to my kids about drugs head on and give them the information. And it worked. None of them went that direction. So you're right on. But what I do want to bring up, you have a real passion for this. You know what I mean? Why are you so passionate about stopping this drug problem? What is it about it?
I just saw so many lives impacted over the last 30 years. And now, the other work I do is with Only 2MG. It's a nonprofit organization. And I've met so many families who've just been devastated by this, and I, for the longest time, I met them in a professional setting. I was working these investigations and now it wasn't that it wasn't personal then, but now it's a lot more personal. I don't have that case connection, right? Now it's just people I meet who see me speak or understand that, I'm passionate about helping people. And it just breaks my heart that people are dying from this, and that no one cares. It bothers me. If 20, I used this example the other day, if 20 dolphins every day washed ashore on our beaches, life would be over. Yes. It would be all over social media. We'd be texting and calling our senators and our congressmen. We would throw trillions of dollars at it. And I'm not saying we shouldn't. I love dolphins too. I don't want you to get any hate mail from the dolphin lovers. but my point is, if I tell you, and I'm going to tell you something accurate here. We lose someone every 5 to 6 minutes in this country because of drugs. Every 5 to 6 minutes. We lose about 300 people a day. And about 2/3 of all the people we lose in this country from drugs are because of one drug, fentanyl. One drug. But when I tell people that, you know what I hear? Yeah, they made their bed. They can sleep in it. Yeah, bad decision on their part. And don't be wrong. I'm not saying that we should congratulate them for using drugs, but having a little empathy, having a little understanding goes a long way. And just be a human being, just how can we better understand this person to maybe help them not use drugs, help them with the root causes and get better. But just the stigma that we have in this country to treat them. I mean, we say things like addict, we say things like junkie, we make them outcasts. And we know through a lot of research that people who struggle with this, a lot of times are afraid to ask for help because of the shame, because of the stigma. So if you're someone who's struggling with this, the last thing I want to do is say, hey, I need help, because then people are going to look at you. We don't say if I had cancer, you don't call me, hey, cancer. But if I was struggling with drugs, you'd say, hey, addict. Why do we do that? I mean, those words matter. They're impactful.
Sure.
And it's not so much the words. It's how it's the delivery. It's how we carry that, and it's our feelings. And I'm not perfect. We all judge at times, and I get that. And I'm not saying this behavior is acceptable, because it's not. We should encourage people not to break the law or use drugs, but having a little understanding of what's happening, having a little empathy, a little compassion goes a long way. It really does. And if I can help deliver that message, and if I can empower people, especially young people, to make these, make better decisions, if I can empower families, parents, community leaders, members to have these discussions, then it's worth it to me. And that's what I've devoted the next chapter of my life to doing.
And I think you're the person to do it. I mean, you're the perfect person. You were immersed in battling drugs. You know what I mean? You've seen so many areas of it. It's unbelievable. You've actually done something about it, and you see the danger. I love what you're saying. Villainizing people that are on drugs is not the answer. It might seem easy. You're right. You're like, you hit it, right? It's not going to work. I'm going to be honest. I didn't know the problem was that deep. I didn't know 300 people a day. That's something maybe that should be out there, that people should know.
Yeah, we lose 100,000+ people a year. The government calls them drug overdoses. We've been tracking this. I'll give you a statistic here. We've been tracking this data since 1968. 1968 to present, we track the number of people that die every year from what the government calls a drug overdose. I call them drug poisonings. From 1968 to the year 2000, we lost about 210,000 people-ish over a 32-year span. So when we were, let's say in high school, we're probably around the same age. We probably lost. Well, I think I'm older actually.
I'm probably older. No.
You look a lot younger, so than I do.
It's the hat. Wear a hat at work.
But historically we've lost 3,000-4,000 people a year. So let me put that in perspective. So for 32 years, we lost a total of about 210,000 people.
Jeez.
In the last 2 years, we've lost 210,000 people plus.
So the problem is just getting worse.
Yeah. So the line is it's a horizontal line that turns vertical. So we lose over 100,000 people every single year. And then when you dive deeper into those numbers, we learn that about 2/3 of those numbers are because of one drug. So 30 years in law enforcement, I've never seen a drug more impactful. Drug landscape has changed. Casual drug use, drug experimentation. We have a drug that can kill you the first time we used it. We never had that before. And when I talk to kids, it's another thing I say is your generation, whether it's fair or not, now has a drug that can kill them the first time they use it. We never had that. If we use drugs and it killed us the first time, it was like winning the lottery. I know that sounds like a weird thing, but my point is very odd, very rare, right? And this is, so 100,000 people a year, 75% of those, 2/3 to one drug. That's about 75,000 people every year to one drug. And again, I'm one of those people that has to visualize what a number is. Think NFL stadiums. I'm in Missouri right now. Kansas City, Missouri, the Kansas City Chiefs, the world champion Kansas City Chiefs. Arrowhead Stadium, 75,000 people sit in that stadium. So that's how many folks we lose every year. And when I say that to kids, that's usually like, because they don't understand what 75,000 people is. But when I can equate it to to a stadium or something they're familiar with, and they're like, oh, wow,
That's that's that sounds like a disease to me. That is eating up our communities. Man, I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're on this earth and you were chosen for this. Let me ask you this: do you think this is your purpose in life? If I asked you what's your purpose in life, it doesn't have to be so deep, or
Yeah.
whatever you're comfortable with telling me about.
I've always felt I've always felt like I am here to help people.
Nice.
I really have. I've always felt this sense of community and a sense of just wanting to help people. And and I don't know if I'm effective at it or not, but I feel like that's been my calling, and that's the reason I'm here. I dedicated my life to public service. I was a police officer, I was a DEA agent, and to me it felt natural. Even though I enjoy the training and the speaking and the consulting, I just enjoy helping people. That's why I started only 2MG, and and it's public service, but in my own way, right? And that's just who I feel, that's who I am, who what my DNA is.
Got it. And yeah, it shows, right? And you did it your way, the way you see that you can make an impact. And I think you did make an impact. I think it doesn't feel like it though, right? That's the problem, because it just grew, but you did.
Yeah.
How much more would have grown if guys like you weren't out there battling, So I thank you for your service. Let's start there, because you were out there doing the work that we need. So tell me about your organization, your training. What do you do?
It actually goes back to my timeline. So when I left Texas, I went to Quantico, Virginia. So Quantico, Virginia is where the Marine Corps base is there. And on the Marine Corps base, you have the FBI and the DEA Academy.
Oh, that's the movie. It's always Quantico when you talk about FBI.
Yes, well, we're co-located there on the Marine Corps base in Quantico, and I ended up being in charge of most in-service training, all the classroom type stuff. So anything from money laundering to leadership schools. And that's when I really started to dive deeper into the leadership. And I knew I had an interest in training and teaching. And I've always been that guy, even when I was at Joplin Police Department. If they needed someone to go talk to an organization, I rose my hand. It wasn't my primary duty. I've just always enjoyed that. Even my graduate degree was, believe it or not, in human resources, but I had an emphasis in training. And so I early on, for whatever reason, I just kind of tapped into that. And then any opportunity I had throughout my career, I would do it. But now I'm in a full-time position at Quantico where I'm in charge of most in-service training. And I just fell in love with it. And I knew I have to figure out how to take this and use this for a post-career. That, and also my love for just talking about drugs and, imparting knowledge and helping people, empowering people. So I did another assignment with DEA. I ended up going back to Missouri, where I was in charge of the Springfield office and all of DEA operations in Southwest Missouri for a couple of years. And then I had enough. I loved DEA. I really did. I loved my people and all the relationships we built. But now I had this fire that was out of control, right, within me. And that was this training piece. So I started Eagle 6 training. Like I said, the Eagle was representative of DEA, and the 6 to have your back. And my idea originally was to do non-law enforcement, believe it or not. But it was really tough initially to tap into that culture. And what did I know for 30 years? Law enforcement. So a lot of even my current business, a lot of that is law enforcement, and that's fine. I love that. That led me to start working as a law enforcement training coordinator for another organization. I wear a lot of hats.
What a career, bro.
I retired just so I could get busier.
I'm telling you. Right. What an awesome career.
I work for them in 9 states, and I coordinate training, and then I do my own thing in the other 41 states. And then that led into, like I said, only 2MG, where that works specific more to fentanyl. But the leadership stuff, I really, really enjoy. To me, it's one of those things. How do we make people better? How do we help them serve others? And that's what, to me, leadership is. It's serving others. So it's even though it's a different thing, everyone laughs. You have a interest in leadership and an interest in fentanyl. Like, it's the two opposite things, right? But at the end of the day, in my mind, the connection's the same. I can help people through both of those things. So to me, it feels natural, but I know when you hear it, you're like, that doesn't make any sense.
It all starts with leadership, right? In any section. So yeah, we need that. And how do people help your non-for-profit? So let's say someone's listening and they want to assist you.
Yeah. Well, I have a donate link. But my point is, I am actively applying for grants and trying to find money. I'll be honest, I am horrible at asking people for money. I really am. But I know that's necessary. Last year, I traveled. My main presentation is 4 hours long, and I did it 54 times last year in about 20 different states. So the organization that I work for in part of the U.S., 9 states, they often will pay for. Well, they're not often. They will pay for my travel, but everything else. And I don't say this to brag. I really don't. But I've paid this out of pocket, and it's tough.
You should brag. You should brag. We need people to see that as a bragging situation, so more can do it because we need it. So thank you.
Well, I pay for it out of pocket because it's important, right? And so my work in Eagle 6 training pays for it. Basically funds my nonprofit, and I've been fortunate enough to do that. Now, can't do it forever. I don't have a money tree I can go shake. So I have been trying to figure out how to obtain other sources of income, not for me, but to enable travel. I have a plethora of other DEA retired agents and law enforcement people who want to teach, who want to get into schools, who want to get into communities and talk about drugs. So we have an idea to scale this, but I can't pay for them. I'm scraping by to pay for my own travel. So I am asking for donations. It's a wonderful thing if people do it, but again, it's hard for me to ask. But thank you for allowing me to share that.
Of course. It's important. It's very important.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll put the links. Where would they go? Can you say the website or?
Yeah. So I have. There's two. My primary website is Eagle 6 Training, and that's EAGLE, and then the 6 is just the number. It's not spelled out. And then training. So eagle6training.com. And then my nonprofit is only2mg. So ONLY, the number 2, not spelled out again, and then MG. So it means only 2 milligrams. And just to let you know, the significance of that is it only takes 2 milligrams to kill the average human being. So if 2 milligrams.
That's what you named the non-for-profit. Yo, that is genius.
I appreciate that. Even the logo, you got to look at the logo. I had the logo professionally made, and it's go look at the logo. I'm really proud of it. I really am. I had several choices, and I was like, no. And then when they presented that one to me, I'm like, that's it. It's
.org? Is it .org or .com?
.com. Yeah. Only2mg.com. ONLY2mg.com.
Yeah, I see it.
That logo is actually fentanyl. It's like a pill. And then it has a chemical compound on the right, and then it has.
I'll put it up in the video because it's genius.
Yeah, I wish it wasn't me. It was just the designer, but I was very happy. But yeah, those are my two websites. That's how to get a hold of me. Eagle 6 Training is a for-profit business, and we do a lot of training and consulting, leadership focused. We are diving into some other lanes. We just purchased some equipment late last year, or a couple months ago. So we're gonna start looking at like de-escalation training and some other types of training. Actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to talk about this price. It's not at market yet, but we call it virtual range, Eagle 6 Training virtual range, and it's really cool. It's really neat. So what it is, it's a smokeless range, and what I mean by that is you're shooting at a screen. So with a real gun, but it doesn't have any ammo. There's no bullets.
Okay.
So have you ever done airsoft where the
Yes.
airsoft has like gas in it? It has that recoil. So we do the same thing. We put gas in the gun so they have that recoil. So you have to get on, your sight acquisition. You can't just keep on shooting. You have to get on target, and then it uses a laser, and then we have a projector and the screen. But the cool thing about it is it's myself and other retired law enforcement people, DEA people, all have a lot of training in this type of arena. And we want to take it to non-law enforcement. We want to take it to law enforcement too. We want to take it to non-law enforcement people. So let's say you're having a conference and you have a networking event or some type of, I've been to networking events where we're playing cornhole or where we're just drinking, drinking and talking. Well, how about have this? I mean, we can give you an AR and put it on fully auto, and again, no bullets, it's completely safe, and you can shoot zombies. Or we can have a steel tree where you and I are both matched up against each other, and we have to see who can knock our targets down the fastest. Or we can put you in real life scenarios in a safe environment on a screen and show you what police officers are faced with every day to give you a sense of that quick decision making that a police officer might have to make. I don't see your hands. I'm telling you to remove your hands, and then boom, you pull out a cell phone, or maybe boom, you pull out a handgun. Things that really happen, so we can give you a sense of, oh my goodness, you had to make that split decision on whether I shoot or not. So introducing the public to the reality of what law enforcement faces every day. So we're really excited about that. Again, it's close.
I love that in the corporate event. That is real entertainment, and it provokes thought, like you said. It puts you in that position, like we don't know how that feels when
right. Or you just kill zombies.
I love it. What a great idea. Okay, so business you're really good at. Obviously, you're doing that as well. So I'm proud of you for that. So you've had a huge, miraculous career, if you ask me, right? So if you're talking to a young man, right, that is thinking about entering law enforcement and going your same track, what are some of the skills they would need to start learning immediately, or traits?
Yeah. It's really the same in any, if you're recruiting for your organization, it's the same thing. Well, you want people that can communicate, you want people that you think that you can learn and you can teach them the tasks and the skills that they need, and they can be effective, right? And they can make you money, or they can make you efficient or whatever. I would tell a young person to, one, is stay out of trouble.
Very important.
That's just very important, right? It's almost too obvious, but reality. And then just keep your head up and just do the best you can, make good relationships. Because one of the things that we're going to do, especially at the federal level, during the application process, we're going to talk to your bosses. We're going to talk to your coworkers. We want to see what kind of person you are. It's not about what you do. It's about how you did it. I don't care if you worked at the police department or if you just flipped burgers at McDonald's. It doesn't matter. It obviously there's some skills that you can pick up in certain professions, law enforcement, military, et cetera. So I'm not trying to downplay that, but I want to know, did you get along with coworkers? Did you come in late? Did you argue? Did you quit after a week? Did you walk out without, you know what I mean? I want to get to know this person as a employee. And then obviously I want to look at the skills that he or she is picked up. They're a police officer. Okay. Well, they were patrol. Oh, they were in narcotics, or they were in the military. Oh, they did this, or they rose to this rank. So obviously there's some skill development there. So I would tell them this, do what you want to do, but just don't be a doofus, right?
Yeah. I like the way you held back
I gotta be careful, right?
Good sensory. So, but it's true, right? So teamwork, and like you explained, one of the weapons you used in going into these high stressful situations was knowing that your teammates had your back and look at companies. So that is important. That's good. You mentioned that. Like, it's good to know how these people work with other people. All right. So now you know. And what is next for you? I'm curious. Like, are you gonna like take over the world? I mean, you're close to it.
I'm just trying to manage. I got 3 hats that I'm wearing full time, working for a risk center and supporting law enforcement in 9 states. Eagle 6 training, we're expanding that, bringing more people on board, doing more training. Only 2MG. If we can get the donations and the grants and the money, man, we're going to take this to another level, and I love it. We're going to bring people on. We're going to talk to more communities. What's in there's hopefully no other hats going to be wearing in my future, or at least in my near future, as far as that the answer to your question goes. But I don't want to get so thin where I can't give my best to each organization. I want them to know that they're getting the most out of me and the biggest bang for their buck, right? And their support. So I gotta just stay focused, and I gotta figure out how to be the most efficient person in organization that I can to help people.
You're committed to this thing. You are committed to this. It's great to hear another human that is like out there doing something about it. Now, I do mental health is a big thing for me. I own a clinic, so I wanted to ask you, since you were law enforcement, how that's rough too, right? Where you guys, is it hard, the mental health piece of it?
It is. What's interesting is I have thankfully seen a shift in that. When I started my law enforcement career in the early 90s, if you had a bad day, you didn't talk about it to anyone. You just didn't. You're at the locker changing into your civilian clothes, and you can't look at the guy next to you and say, hey, that child abuse case was horrible. My first Christmas Eve and my first Christmas were both horrific child abuse cases that I had to work and just take the initial call. I wasn't the investigator. I was in patrol. And I still think about those things to this day. I mean, you see a lot of trauma as a police officer, and that just in that short 5 years when I was wearing a uniform. I mean, the things you see are, very impactful, and it adds up, right? And for the longest time, we didn't really have an avenue to release that. Thankfully, oh my goodness, thankfully I figured out some avenues really kind of by accident. It's going to sound silly, but I remember early on in my career, I was playing Xbox a lot. I was playing video games, and I would get off a shift, and I would put this video game on, and 10 hours later, I'm still playing it. And people are like, "Oh, what's going on?" And I'm like, and I finally had to think about it and say, "Hey, this was my way of just forgetting about the world for a little bit, right?" And now, man, mental health is just there's so much training and so much discussion about it, and there needs to be more. By all means, there needs to be more. But let me tell you, we've come a long way in the law enforcement community to have these open discussions and tell people, hey, it's all right. It's okay to feel this way. We're developing some critical incident training right now, and part of that is the trauma piece, and we want people to know you can all experience a critical incident. Everyone can walk out of that different. It doesn't mean that someone's better or stronger. It just means we're different, right? It's like fingerprints, or it's like anything else. We're all unique. And all that little T, all that little trauma, all that, we got to face that. I was in some trauma training. I was a member of DEA's trauma team, and let me tell you, DEA's trauma team, man, I am so proud of that. They are awesome. So what DEA's trauma team does is respond to at times of need to our employees and their families. So I don't care if it's a suicide. I don't care. I don't care if it's a hurricane and trees get knocked down and block your driveway. We're out there chainsawing those trees away so you can get out of your house, right? Just mowing your lawn, picking family up at an airport for a funeral service. Little things that make a big difference, and stepping up and being there for your family, right? And I don't mean your family, your brothers and sisters, mom and dad. I'm talking about the people you work with every day. And but during that training, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how you approach things and how they impact you. And it was interesting to hear that from professionals, because I'd always try to figure it out myself, right? But I didn't know how to define it or what was really going on. And then you also realize that you're not alone. We all deal with a lot of these things. We're not as unique as we think we are in this life, right? Or in this world, for that matter. and that we can ask for help, and that we can, be better and get better.
I love it. So basically, the trauma you guys had their six, right? And anything they needed, that was there to the six again. That's it. I'm gonna use that forever from now on. I'm gonna be walking around the house, and when I need something clean, I'm like, "You got my six?" To my wife. I'm just gonna use it. It just sounds cool.
Trauma
So,
six training, right?
yeah. So it's support, yeah, because I can't imagine like we, as people that are not law enforcement, when we think about what you guys go through, we think about the action part of it, right? Because that's the movies we see. But we don't think about like what you say. You see those child abuse cases, and you have kids, and you compare. It's I don't know. You see a lot of things as law enforcement. I always wonder how do you guys get out of that? How do you come home and see the world as you know beautiful world when you just came home from work and saw the ugliness of what happens with human beings? So
It's hard.
it's hard. I don't know if I can do it. And there was a stigma before, right? Like you can't talk to. It's like, what do you do? Stop talking about it. You know what I mean? We're brute force, but you're right.
Yeah.
Now the stigma is lowering, and that's important. I love that the DEA had a team for that. That is great
A
thing.
lot of agencies, yeah, but I'm really proud of DEA's team. It's just an amazing thing. I've done a lot of cool things at DEA, but I'm proud of my career, but I'm really proud of that team and the work that the DEA does to help people.
Yeah, you helped your brothers and your sisters. You helped them come out because, like you say, just cutting a tree to let them get out of their house. That's less stress after they had that stress.
Mm-hmm.
So good for you, man. I love your story. I love what you're doing. I really want you to get the support you need for your non-for-profit because it's needed, man. We got to battle these drugs. We got to do something. What we were doing before, like you said, it's what we knew how to do. But just say no doesn't work anymore. You know what I mean? Where we need people like you out there that have the experience, even in speaking. Speaking is powerful. Being able to say these words to a group of people changes their mindset. So, yeah, I really hope this works out for you. I'll put all your links everywhere.
Thank you.
I'll put as much. That's how I'll support. I'll put you out there as much as possible because it's important. Any action stories? One before we go. That'll be cool. I'm telling you, I'm just a citizen that loves police movies. I watch Cops a lot, so that tells you my mindset. And I'm there. I act like I'm there with you guys. I know I'm not, but I love what you guys do. I wanted to be a cop too for a long time. So it's great work. Law enforcement, I think, is we as communities we overlook how powerful it is that there are men and women that every day wake up and they go into danger just to make sure we're not in danger. So I thank you for that so much. Yeah.
If you want to hear a little bit about my undercover story on A&E,
Yes. Okay. One more. Come on. One more. Give me one. Just give me one. You want to give me
well,
one?
if you watch we had to make some changes to it. It was fun because it's TV, right? So they had to make it a little bit more sexy, right? And so during the I'm going to give you a little bit behind the scenes. When they were debriefing me and deciding whether or not they wanted to bring me on the program, they were asking, about the operation, and we talked about it, and they were like, "So this was the first time you've worked undercover?" And I'm like, "No, I've worked undercover before." And they were like, but not at this level, right? And I'm like, "No, not at this level." It was the only time I, met two people who were members of the Gulf Cartel. They were they're cartel members, right? And most of the undercover work I had done up to this point was pretty small. I mean, just couple pounds of dope here and there and things like that. And, at least from DEA perspective, pretty small, but they kept on saying, "This is your first time." And I'm like, and they're like, "How's this? This is your first time in this type of operation?" I'm like, "Yes." They're like, "Well, do you mind saying that this is the first time you ever worked undercover?" And I'm like, "Sure." It's 20 years later. There's no court. There's no paperwork. There's no integrity issues. So I'm like, I'll say whatever you want. So if you listen to it, it's like, this is the first time I worked undercover. And I'm trying to make it all sexy and stuff. But that was a fun day.
So. They wanted a storyline. They had an idea of what it should be, and that's
Yeah.
what they. I wouldn't want to hear about all the undercover. So, how much dope did you say you guys found that on that round and that
Oh, in
in
that
that round?
particular case, so we had a trafficker that was selling methamphetamine and marijuana, and he had a. It was actually an interesting case. He didn't speak any Spanish, but he was watching Blow, yeah, the movie Blow with Johnny Depp,
Yes.
and he thought he was Johnny Depp's character. He hook, line, and sinker. He was all in. I mean, this was
No.
people like Scarface or things like that. This was his character. So he goes to Mexico, doesn't speak a lick of the language, has a note that he used. I don't know what program, like Google Translate or something like that. And so he writes this note in English and he has it moved into Spanish. And if you speak Spanish, you know that the language is not exact, right?
It's
Verbs get changed around, everything else. So when you read it, it's kind of funny, when you read it in Spanish. So he goes into these shady bars looking for a source of supply for marijuana, and with this note, and it works. Like he finds someone who's willing to, and then it ends up being links into the Gulf cartel, which control this area of Mexico. Mind-boggling, it really is. So he starts purchasing probably small amounts, maybe 100 pounds or so early on, and then it just gets out of control. It just starts purchasing hundreds of pounds, and it's a family operation. And I always get a kick out of this. His grandmother, who was probably, 85 at the time, stereotypical grandmother, the white hair, station wagon, driving like that. She'd go to the border, pick this stuff up, and she would drive this throughout the Midwest. I mean,
what? What do you mean?
She was his transporter, right? And his mom was involved. His brothers were involved. It was a family operation, and he was doing more of the meth. The family was more into the weed. But yeah, I mean,
Grandma, can you take this back? I can't imagine the conversation. Like, how did that start? How did you talk to her about that? Oh man, that's nuts. So how big did it get? How big the load you guys?
Well, he was moving thousands of pounds of marijuana across the Midwest, and I was actually investigating him for methamphetamine. At the time in the early 2000s, we weren't seeing this type of meth. Most of the meth that we were seeing in the U.S. was that really crappy. We called it like yes,
the triggers and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. So we were seeing those one pots, red pea, the anhydrous ammonia. I mean, just if a lab could yield. If it could yield an ounce, you had a super lab. Most of these, maybe a quarter ounce. I mean, they were just they couldn't really do a lot, and they sprung up throughout the country. But then, a lot of things happened with Mexico, or at least the cartels and the chemicals and stuff like that, and they started to ramp up production and started to take over the meth trafficking and started to make it in bulk in their super labs, and then they would smuggle it into the U.S. So when we started seeing that at DEA, we were like, wow, we always knew we had a good source, right? And we were still paying, we were probably paying $1,500 an ounce. And to give you some perspective, right now we can buy a pound of meth for about $1,500 pound. So at the time, he was moving methamphetamine, and we were super interested. Who's his source, right? And then that led into the marijuana, and we found out he was selling or distributing thousands and thousands of pounds throughout the Midwest, and I was trying to develop informants. That was really difficult. So I was doing a historical conspiracy investigation, and which is a very powerful tool in federal law enforcement, and that led to what's that?
Can you say what that is? No.
Yeah. So historical or a conspiracy investigation is when you can prove two or more people conspired to do some type of. So the best way I can describe it is, let's just say you and I decide to rob a bank. I'm going to drive the getaway car, and you're going to go in and actually rob the bank. Well, it doesn't mean
you go in. I'm not going to go in no bank.
Well,
I
I
get
go
what
to
you're
the
saying.
bank, fair, and then you drive the getaway car.
Yes.
Well,
Hopefully, I'm still out there before. Well, by the time you finish, depends when the cops get there.
well, I get
That was
hear
wrong.
you hear the sirens and you take off. You get scared. You take off. Well, guess what? Guess who's going to get charged? Both of us. We
The
both
same.
conspired to do this. Just because you didn't wait for me to get in the car, just because you didn't get out, you may have even had a gun on you. But that's what conspiracy law is. You know, you all
Wow.
were part of this criminal organization. You know, you've probably heard things like RICO and things like that. I
Yeah.
mean, this is a little different, but really kind of the same principle where you're trying to go after the organization. And again, this is a very powerful tool in federal law enforcement because now I can hold everyone accountable. I can hold the people that are cooking the dope, the people that are smuggling the dope, people that are selling the dope, people that are money laundering, all the different facets of the organization. So that's how, that's the type of case I was developing against this guy. And then it led to, what I would call sources of information, almost like informants, but they were just more like half cooperating, if you will. They just here's some information, but I don't really want to talk to you too much. And ultimately that led to, someone getting beat up in his life. Oh, I skipped an important part here. He was a bad drug dealer.
Like one of the real bad ones, like one of those that we think about.
No. Let me rephrase this. He was bad in the sense of he lost a lot of money, not bad in the sense of.
Okay.
but I
You should have got
said that
another
right.
curveball.
He was getting robbed a lot. So the bad guys were, or the actual bad guys in the term that in the sense that you were thinking. They were fronting him the dope. So what that means is they were giving it to him on consignment. They would give him the drugs for free, essentially. He would sell them, and then whatever the agreed upon price is, he'd give them that price after the sell, and then he'd keep the remaining money, right? It happens in retail all the time. And that's what we call fronting the dope. And so they would front him the dope, but then he would sell it, and then before he could pay them back, he was getting robbed by other criminals. And that happens quite a bit, a lot more than people think. So, in fact, there are organizations out there that are little groups, and all they do is they try to figure out who the dope dealers are, like the big ones, and then rob them. Because at the end of the day, let's just say I'm the dope dealer and you rob me. What am I going to do? Am I going to call the police?
I can't call up. Yeah.
Right?
What is the business plan?
Yeah, exactly. So he was getting robbed a lot, and what that meant was that his debt to the cartel was growing and growing and growing. And it got to the point where they were fed up. And at the same time, he got wind of my investigation. So he went in the wind. I mean, he was living in tents and in the middle of the forest. I mean, he thought for sure we were there, we were going to arrest him. And we were still building our investigation. So now he's growing deeper in debt. He thinks the DEA is going to arrest him. I mean, life is caving all around him, right? The cartel now is in Arkansas looking for him to kill him. They want their money. He's ignored them. He's deep in debt, so he's done, right? And then now they got to make him an example to anyone else that thinks that they can rip off the cartel, right? And they end up scaring someone pretty bad, someone close to him. And I talk about that in the show. I'll leave that part to the show, but
yes, leave it to the show. Go see it. Please go see it.
So that led to an introduction, a phone introduction to me to the bad guys who had no idea I was a DEA agent. I acted like I was a drug dealer myself, and
Also,
it worked out really well.
Undercover roots. You went to your undercover skills, and you see, you got it.
That leads into the show where I was able to get into an undercover role, and that's what I was saying is most people think that undercover is something that we infiltrate these organizations and we live with them and we hang out with them, and years later they all go to jail. And I'm not saying there's not some exceptions. There's some notable biker cases and things like that. But for the most part, it's a moment of opportunity. And that's exactly what this was. I had an opportunity to go into an undercover role, got really lucky to have that window open for me. Slipped in, did the undercover, slipped back out, made the arrest, and
Wow,
bad people
how
went to jail.
exciting, man. That is exciting stuff. I'm telling you. And like this story proves that their own destruction leads to their own capture. I mean, that's kind of what happened, right? That mess they created came right back to our people. And y'all went and got them. Well, I mean, I don't know. I do like what you do. I like what you've done, and I love you that you're helping in this way. Everything you're doing is powerful. I mean, are you proud of yourself for all this work that you've done? You
I'm proud of
should be.
myself. I'm proud of my
Yeah.
accomplishments. I'm confident of who I am and what I offer people, and so yeah, I'm also more humble, and sometimes it's hard for me to acknowledge that. But yeah, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of what I've accomplished, and I know I can help people. And I know I have a lot of gas in my tank still. So
And you're proving it, right? You're going. So I really hope that you get the support you need. This is important, and I'm really happy that you joined me. And I thank you for everything you've done for our communities and the lives you have saved that you probably don't see, right? You don't know because by stopping all these drugs, how many lives did you save from getting that drug? And I mean, it's commendable work that you guys do. I'm happy it's you. It will never be me. I'll pay taxes. That's my contribution. I can't do it.
important
It's
too.
not my career. So, if you have, is there anything you want to shout out about your websites one more time?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. So, if you're interested in talking to me or and seeing how we can help you or your organization, then please reach out to me at www.eagle6training.com. Easy to get a hold of. As long as I'm not flying or teaching, I make it a point to get back to people as quickly as possible. We do a lot of leadership training and we do some consulting. If you have specific requirements or demands, communicate them with us and let us see if we can help you. And if not, then maybe we can point you in the right direction. So if you're interested in learning more about how fentanyl is killing 75,000 plus people a year, then my other hat is only2mg.com. And I'm happy to come out. We're a nonprofit organization. Don't let money get in the way of that discussion. We will come out. We will find a way. Like I said earlier, whether it's self travel or self payment or through Eagle 6 training, I'll find a way to come to your organization or your community and have this important discussion. I don't want money to prevent us from having a valuable discussion. So, yeah, Eagle 6 training or only 2MG, and happy to work with you.
Go out and support Brian because he's doing the work we need, right? So, yeah, well, thank you for joining me. It was an amazing conversation. Anything you need from me, you have my contact. Just let me know, okay?
Awesome. Good talking to you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.